Joining us now, Ivanka Trump, the daughter of Donald Trump. Ivanka, great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
So I was in Cleveland. I was a national delegate to the convention. I was on the floor. I heard your speech. The entire arena was riveted by your words. I thought it was one of the best speeches at a convention ever. I know you got great feedback off it. But, and I said that day, it's the speech, I think, that changed America forever. What has been some of the feedback you've gotten since that night a couple weeks ago?
Well, thank you. First of all, that was very kind of you to say. And, the feedback really has been amazing. I was nervous, obviously. I was not in the sense that, of course, I was nervous because I knew that there would be tens of millions of people watching, but also because I wanted to do a great job for my father. He's been an incredible parent to me. He's been an incredible employer of me for the last decade at the Trump Organization, me and thousands of other colleagues that work with and for him. And I really wanted to do a great job in talking about him in the unique way that I know him, both as a father and as a professional mentor and great entrepreneur and business builder. And I was excited. I was excited to be able to do that. So I think, my father's very well known, as I said in my speech, and yet there are certain sides of him that are less well known. So to the extent that I could talk about him in the way that I knew him, I was happy to be able to do that.
Well, for saying you were nervous, you certainly didn't look nervous. You looked like a veteran of speech-making history up there. You looked fabulous. But I tell you the other thing, you outlined, you not only introduced your father, but you went a long way in outlining a vision of what a Trump administration would be, which is very inclusive and basically a job-creating machine, right?
Absolutely. And I think, I spoke specifically also about what I believe that my father will be able to do to eliminate wage equality. And that's a very major issue, and it's one that I'm deeply passionate about. And I know my father is an employer, and I've seen what he's done in that regard. For my father, the only thing that matters is merit and passion and competence and skill. And so I know what he would do as a leader for this country, and that really has to be something that comes top down. And I know that he would put in place policies that would enable that to transpire. But I think there's nothing my father could do better than job creation. He understands it. He's been an employer. He understands the challenges that employers face. Mm-hmm. And he's had workers for him over the years on every single echelon, whether it's out in the field on a construction site or high-level executives in corporate offices in New York. And he understands their needs, the needs of their families, through his countless interactions with them over the course of decades. So, I think it's part of the reason why his message resonates so well with the American people, because they know he understands what it takes to get this economy on track, and they know that he understands them.
Ivanka, look, there's no question. Your father is not a politician. And one of the biggest appeals he has is speaking his mind, telling Americans the truth, telling them what's on his mind in an unfettered manner. And when he gave his acceptance speech, and I said this on the radio for several days, it was like he was having a conversation with America. It was not a speech at somebody. It was not a check-off litmus test of every possible interest group like Hillary's was. It was a conversation with America. And I think that is the part of your father that is so appealing to so many people and gives people like us the belief that he's ahead of a movement and he can really be the first person to change America. Now,
well, that's right. And he refers to himself as a messenger, and that he's able to elevate the issues and concerns of people who don't have the platform that he has and bring them to the forefront. And, that he's leading the movement, but he's the messenger ultimately of the people. I refer to him in my speeches as the champion of the people and the warrior of them, because he's a fighter. And he's fought through many obstacles in his life, and he fought through an incredibly difficult primary where he was an outsider, and nobody expected him to prevail. And he'll continue fighting. That he knows how to do that, and he does it successfully. And he'll fight for the American people. That's what he wants to be doing. He wants to be fighting for the people of this country who haven't had a champion before. And I think, when you talked about, his ability to speak before a massive audience and it to feel personal for the people that are actually in that audience. You see it at the rallies. You see tens of thousands of people there, but there's a deep connection. It's because they understand he has great empathy. And I think that's one of the things that, the mainstream media does not understand about him. His ability to connect with people is because he is deeply compassionate and very empathetic, and people feel that. They feel that he's honest in his emotions, and that he understands their challenges. And that's why they connect so greatly with him. This month we had a record fundraising month, but the majority of it came from people who were contributing small dollar contributions. Our average check size, I believe, was under $50. So it's people wanting to participate in the movement and lending their support in the ways that they can, and that's so meaningful to him to feel that love and feel that contribution. But it's an amazing movement afoot.
Well, Ivanka, it is America's real political revolution, and it is a movement. And like I was on CNN last night, and a lot of the pundits out there really don't understand exactly what Mr. Trump represents right now, what your father represents. And so they want to put things in their own narrative box, and it just doesn't really fit the reality of what's going on.
The bias is tremendous. With that said, the American people are very smart, and they understand the bias and they understand the distortion. And because he is the messenger he is, and because he's not afraid of getting out there and constantly speaking directly to the people, because he's traveling the country and meeting with tens of thousands of people at a time at rallies and bringing his message directly to them, he's been able to effectively circumvent a lot of the negative influence of the mainstream media's bias.
Ivanka, look, we have had not the best week in our campaign, right? Your father's been knocked off message. We can go back and rehash it. But I know you've talked to him, and I know he takes your counsel and advice to heart and very seriously. A lot of us believe that when Mr. Trump goes back to his core messages about stopping unabated illegal immigration, about having some kind of a HB1 visa policy that makes sense and doesn't take our jobs away, by not shipping our jobs overseas and having our products come back in made by cheap labor at the expense of U.S. jobs, without getting involved in these needless wars. When he talks straight like that, he resonates. Now, he's been knocked off message this week by a lot of factors.
And don't forget the military as well. He is such a strong advocate for the military, for the families of the military, for a strong military. And rebuilding what is a dilapidated military from an infrastructure and from a technology perspective. So I think his message is very clear. Trade, the economy, the military, helping the veterans. And I think that message rings very true with many of your listeners and with the American public at large.
So I know you've had this conversation with him. I guess we're looking for assurance from you that you've talked to him, and we're going to get this campaign back on message. And look, because every time he goes on to some of these media shows, Ivanka, there's a lot of people out there that are scheming before he comes on and how to catch him in a trap and then to play it over and over and over again. I mean, that's the reality of the world we live in now. And so I think that for many of the Trump supporters out there, like myself, we're looking for the assurance that, okay, your father understands some of the pitfalls out there. We're going to stay on message, Ivanka, because if he does that, he is going to win this election.
And he is out there every day traveling around this amazing country. He was in Florida yesterday. He's going to be out there and bringing exactly the message that the American people care about directly to them. So my father is a worker and he's a fighter and he's out there every day. So he will not disappoint you. In my life, my father's, it's an amazing thing. He always rises to the challenge and he always exceeds people's expectations. And I'm sure he will do that for you, John, and for all of your listeners.
Look, I don't have any doubt, and I appreciate the counsel and the advice that you give your father, and I think that's going to be a key element in winning this election in November and getting back to the issues. We talked about job creation before. A lot of people have debated me on CNN and other channels and said, well, look, Mr. Trump says he's going to create jobs, but when he made his ties or something, he shipped those overseas. And my answer to that, and tell me if I'm right, is that, well, I don't think there's a person in America that I trust to bring our jobs back better than Mr. Trump, because he understands how the system can be exploited from 100%. The inside. I mean,
100%. And sadly, American production left the country in many industries a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So you have to start from scratch, incentivizing factories to be built domestically so that there's opportunity to spur production right back here in America. So a lot of industries, when you go out to bid for the footwear industry, for example, there aren't even American companies bidding on producing the product. Because they're unable to do so in scale, or they don't have the technology to develop a shoe. So there's a fundamental challenge that exists today that he understands very much, and so his goal of creating production back in America, I have no doubt he'll succeed at, because he understands the core issues. And he doesn't gloss over them. And he knows that we need to create the opportunity for goods to be produced domestically. And everyone would love, even if it's, there's an issue of our goods not being competitive if they're produced domestically from a price perspective, because there's enormous subsidies by foreign countries for goods produced abroad, in terms of, they don't have the same costs associated with their productions, obviously, from a labor perspective, and they don't have the same regulations placed upon them. And, my father really understands the onerous effect of over-regulation on American business. That is something that, countries producing goods don't have to comply with. And is a real cost on business. The problems with intellectual property theft internationally, that really is almost a form of subsidy for those companies competing against our proprietary technologies here domestically. So he understands all of these things, and he'll put in place common sense solutions to solve them, and then rebuild our infrastructure to enable us to have the production capabilities, because part of it's not being able to be competitive financially. The other part of it's, in some cases and in certain industries, there's not even the production capabilities, even if somebody was willing to pay more in the production process.
Look, there's no question when you talk about these issues, Mr. Trump is the only candidate out there that has real solutions. I mean, I was at the Democratic convention. It was a great Hollywood production, no question. They know how to put on a show. I was there during Mrs. Clinton's speech. I thought it was well delivered, but it was basically Alice in Wonderland meets Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I mean, there was a Halloween goodie bag for every possible Democratic interest group known to man. They didn't have any new solutions for anything, nothing about jobs, nothing about ISIS, nothing about any of the problems that are confronting America now. And it was just basically a Hollywood show. I think the American people are going to see through that. And you look at your father's policies on trade, on other things that matter to middle America, working class Americans. I mean, that's how we're going to win this election. I got to tell you that we had a tough week, no question. I'm more confident today than ever that we're going to turn the corner, Ivanka, and win this election, because we're going to get back to the issues and we're going to get back to talking about what matters to Middle America. And that's why I think at the end of the day, we're going to win.
The people of this country feel that the country's headed in the wrong direction. And my father's proposing a radically new direction. And really, I think the people believe in his vision in terms of trade and the economy and a myriad of other issues. So I'm very excited for him. And John, I obviously thank you for your support and to all of your listeners. So hopefully I'll get out to Virginia to be able to see you very soon.
We look forward to having you. Vice presidential candidate Mike Pence, Governor Pence, is coming to Virginia today. I get to be the MC and introduce him. You had a chance to meet Mike Pence, meet the family. Can you give us a little insight on that?
He is an amazing man. He's an incredibly intelligent man, a very capable man, as we saw in terms of what he's done as governor in what he's done as governor in terms of the economy. I mean, it's actually remarkable to see what he's been able to do in terms of reduction of taxes year over year for his state, in addition to the fact that he increased the budget for certain key areas relating to education and to healthcare. This is what we ultimately need, and I think the financial health of the state of Indiana is a great example of his confidence and how he really excels from an economic perspective. And I think he's just a great person. Him and his wife are a beautiful couple. They have amazing children, so it's really been a pleasure to get to know him.
All right, we are out of time. I want to thank Ivanka Trump for being with us. Miss Trump, I know you got a lot on your plate. Thanks for sharing your time with us today, and I look forward to seeing you when you come into the great Commonwealth of Virginia. And thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for that wonderful speech 2 weeks ago. I just thought it was fabulous. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right.
Bye, John.